Good evening and welcome to the February 6, 2024 edition of the Downers Grove Village Council. Mayor Barnett could not be with us tonight, so I'll be chairing the meeting. Would you all please rise and join us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett. Commissioner Jose.
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit.
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin.
Here.
Commissioner Glover.
Here.
Commissioner Tully.
Here.
Commissioner Davenport.
Here. Thank you. Brings us to item 3, the minutes of prior council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt the minutes of the Village Council meeting from January 16th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or corrections from members of the council? Any comments from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those pass unanimously. Item 4 is public comments. This is an opportunity for folks to tell us about what's on their mind on matters that are not on the agenda tonight. And I see we already have one gentleman coming to the podium. So I'll cut the intro short and turn it over. Welcome.
Okay. Warner Kienkin, I'm a resident of Downers Grove, and I'd like to address my following comments to Mayor Barnett, who's not here tonight, but all of the village commissioners, the village manager, and the staff. I come before you this evening to say thank you for your statements to the group of persons who questioned immigrants arriving in Downers Grove on January the 16th, 2024. Your comments were greatly appreciated by me and I hope the community of Downers Grove. It was this same group of people who made me again become involved in village governance due to comments that were made by them during the library board meeting of April 26, 2023. And you can review those minutes. The same group has attempted to influence the books on the shelves, programs of the library board, and is currently involved in rewriting the land usage statement of the board. This group continues to be disruptive, and this group has now become involved in village council meetings, as we've seen. Since my time is limited, I'd like to just give a brief historical statement. A number of years ago, there were persons who paid approximately $3,000 to come to the United States from a foreign country. This group was denied entry because it was felt by many that to have this group in this country would be unsafe. This group was the Jewish immigrants on the board ship St. Louis in 1939. Many of these persons were later killed in concentration camps. This is not unlike the current immigrants that we see at our borders, who are fleeing terrorism in their own countries. Furthermore, the issue of threat to our nations also impacted Japanese Americans, resulting in internment camps. Historically, we have had slavery and apartheid legislation in this country known as Jim Crow until 1954. We are still dealing with the after effects of this history. In addition, the westward expansion, Native Americans were placed onto reservations, and there was a sport made of killing off their primary source of food, namely the buffalo. Many of these Native Americans are still living on reservations to this day. Red Cloud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, dealing with the Lakota tribe, is one of the poorest counties in the United States. Because of this history regarding persons who do not look like us, I very much welcome the comments made by our mayor. We still have a long way to go, but we saw that change is possible. Thank you, Mayor, village commissioners, village manager, and staff. And to all persons in Downers Grove who may be listening tonight, please come to the support of our library and its staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Warner.
I'm going to make it really short this time. I'm here tonight. I'm actually going to be announcing something that I feel dear to my heart. I'm going to start a rally, International Black Balloon Day in Downers Grove. It's to honor the memories of the people we lost from drug addiction, opiate addiction. Not that I'm honoring that they're on drugs. I'm honoring memory. We were losing a lot of young, bright minds, children, and I've had personal involvements with my daughter by heart. She died from drug overdose. The kickoff is today. I was going to bring some black balloons. Told the mayor about it, but then I took a power nap and woke up late, so I didn't get the balloons. But it actually is on March 6th. So my address, I finally signed my lease of my ultimate office suite at 515 Ogden Avenue. We've got parking spaces up in front. I'm going to be working with the city. I'm sure the city knows how to reach me, or I know how to reach them. And I want to start a rally and make it known, as Downers Grove cares about its public, about the addiction problem. It's not just anywhere, it's everywhere. And it's not a matter of getting off the drugs, it's a matter of promoting never get on the drugs. You know, we've got a society that's basically swaying in the wrong negative direction. It's all our responsibility to bring it in a positive direction. I hope that anybody wants to try to reach me. I'm at 515 Ogden Avenue. Yes, this is a commercial, but considering it's for a good cause, I don't mind. And my new suite is 104. I just signed a lease a couple weeks ago. And I hope to get anybody that wants to get involved, any suggestion, any ideas. I have an online presence. I just paid thousands to computer experts, to a whole bit. I've got 4 different websites being set up. It's not a test run. It's something that has to be done. We got young families being destroyed, and we got to stop it now. Not start it, stop it from even beginning. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Any other comments on items not appearing on our agenda? All right, thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport?
Aye.
Commissioner Tully?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jose?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6, our active agenda. We have one item. Is there a motion with regard to item A?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the key terms dated February 6, 2024, and direct staff to negotiate a redevelopment agreement for Civic Center Lot 2 between the Village and LCI Development Partners, Incorporated.
Second.
Any comments from the public about item A, the redevelopment key terms? No stampede? Any comments from the public? I'm sorry, the council. Commissioner Tully.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just wanted to extend my thanks to staff for adding those additional terms and making them even better agreement than it was, so appreciate the work. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'd just like to join in thanking staff for the revisions here and then the overall agreement. I think this is it's the right agreement for this project at the right time, and it's exciting to see that piece kicking off now after all of this time. So let's go. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Davenport?
Aye.
Commissioner Tully?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Jose?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously. Just like that, we're on to the first reading. We have one item that I will kick over to Village Manager Dave Fieldman. Good evening.
Good evening. Just one item tonight. It is an ordinance increasing the number of K1 catering liquor licenses. Those liquor licenses authorize the sale of alcohol related to catering events, and this ordinance would increase the number of those licenses available from 4 to 12. That's an increase of 8 licenses. This is due to a change in demand for those licenses. The demand is increased due to a change in the business model for one of our banquet facilities over on Lacey Road, and they are now using multiple caterers rather than providing those services in-house. And our village attorney, Enzo Petrarca, is here to answer any questions that you may have tonight on this ordinance change.
Thank you. Any questions with regard to Commissioner Tully?
Thank you for the explanation for the demand for additional numbers of licenses and the reasons for it. That makes perfect sense due to the change of the business model. I also assume that there have been no issues with any of the K1 license holders to date.
No issues.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I had a quick
Sorry,
question.
Commissioner
No,
Gilmore.
you're fine. So the additional licenses, they will, any caterer who services or provides it will need a K1
Correct, if they want to serve alcohol.
if they want to serve alcohol. So this will limit, I shouldn't say limit, but this provides the licenses for this particular banquet hall to be used there, or could it be used
They
anywhere?
can be used throughout the village.
Okay. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions or comments from members of the public? All right.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney, I'll go right back to you for the attorney's report.
Thank you, and the only item I have is that ordinance increasing the K1 liquor licenses, be on next week's active agenda. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Barnett did not give us a mayor's report tonight, so that brings us to council member reports. An opportunity to report out on goings-on in the community or other events. I will start to my right with Commissioner Davenport. Good evening.
No report, thank you.
Commissioner Glover.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit.
No report, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tully.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a suggestion, if Doggy Depot ever asks for a liquor license, we'll have to call them K9s. No report.
I had to follow that one. No report, no report. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm just wondering why I didn't see that coming. All right, the main event of the evening is actually the manager's report, which is item 11, which is set up over in the committee room. So we will take a short break and reconvene over there in probably 5 minutes or so. Thanks, everybody. Starting off with the manager's report, we have 2 items on that report. I will kick it off. I'll just go right to Stan. Mr. Popovich.
Mayor Pro Tem Jose. So the first item tonight is to talk about our Butterfield Road corridor plan that the village participated in. As you're all aware, Butterfield Road is on the north side of town. Here at this location, a large corridor running all the way from the Hidden Lakes Park all the way over to Highland Avenue here in the village of Downs Grove. The village participated with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, the villages of Lombard and Oak Brook, to develop a Butterfield Road corridor plan. The corridor plan covers Butterfield Road here in yellow all the way from I-355 to the King Ray Highway on the east. And like I mentioned, it included the village of Downers Grove, village of Lombard, Oak Brook, and DuPage County DOT. Downers Grove was just this little small section over here in the southwest corner. Very important section for the village and for the corridor as well. So this is a collaborative project that we worked on with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, CMAP, and the adjacent communities as well. So the corridor plan was attached in the packet tonight, and it's also online. It's a very interactive online tool that we can use. 4 main categories. You got 5 main categories. Introduction, talked about transportation in the corridor, economic development in the corridor, housing and livability, and parks and open space as well. So it's a really comprehensive plan that CMAP was doing for our communities. There are 4 goals that came out of this plan that we've been working on. The first is to support multimodal transportation options to accommodate safe regional vehicular public transit, pedestrian, and bicycle movement. So all different forms of transportation in the corridor. Ensure the corridor is resilient to changing commercial and market conditions, office market conditions. We all know commercial's changing, office markets are changing. And what we're seeing too as well is that the specifically in Lombard, with the changes to some of these office uses and the large parking lots converting to some residential uses as well. Which leads us to goal number 3, which is to ensure that residents and employees of the corridor have access to parks and open space. So as more residents are moving in, you're seeing they're asking for parks and open space and amenities that way. Additionally, for the employers that are in the area, there's not a lot of those places that employees can go out and maybe have a lunch outside in the park or something. So providing that to those folks in the corridor. And lastly, sort of a catch-all, maintain the quality of life for the corridor's residents and ensure access to businesses and jobs. So those are the 4 main goals that came out of this plan. Out of these 4 goals, 11 recommendations came out in these 4 areas: transportation, economic development, housing, livability, and parks and open space. And there was 41 direct strategies. So everything from working to develop bike lanes and to encourage active transportation to connections to other parks and recreation opportunities, maybe not in the corridor, but adjacent to the corridor as well. And so the staff recommendation tonight is for the village council to accept the Butterfield Road Corridor Plan and forward it to our consultants, Halcyon Levine LLC, for consideration in the preparation of our comprehensive plan. With that, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll turn it back over to you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members of the council?
Just a
Don't all
quick
jump at
comment.
once?
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So great timing on this. I was super excited to see all the components that seem to ring or sound very familiar to some of the things we've talked about as a council and what we're looking forward to. So I look forward to supporting this and do think passing this on to our team to figure out ways it can be leveraged, incorporated, working with our other towns. I just think the timing has been great, and I look forward to seeing this in action as well as its impact and integration into our own plan. Thank you.
Martin?
Ditto. Plus, thank you for the initiative of making sure that we were part of this. Understanding the origins of the plan, I'm very glad that we are part of it, as opposed to it happening to us. We are happening with it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
That's all I have.
Yeah, I thank you for being a part of this, obviously. There are a lot of themes involved in this that we've heard a lot over the course of putting together the beginnings of our comprehensive plan journey that we're going to take a big step on starting tonight. But a lot of the themes of green space and more pedestrian friendly, more bicycle friendly, all of which are positives. But with that particular spot in town, I just want to make sure that we maintain our focus on retail. It's such an important piece of our sales tax here in the village. And while we need to make sure it's attractive overall, I want to maintain that retail focus. But I know that'll go into the hopper with everything else we'll be talking about tonight and over the course of the next year and a half or so. But that's just my 2 cents. Any comments or questions from members of the public? Please.
I was just wondering, because I'm an avid cyclist, or I was, and one of the things that I've learned in Downers Grove is that the bicycle paths leading to the larger paths are not at all connected. So for example, when I lived in Western Springs, we could take the bicycle path from Bemis Woods all the way out to Elmhurst, connect with Prairie Path and so forth. Here, it's relatively isolated. We've got a number of paths surrounding us. Is there a plan to interconnect a lot of the paths since you're working with Lombard and other communities?
I think you'll be seeing a lot more of that as we develop our bike and pedestrian plan over the period of the next probably 18 months to 2 years. We haven't really kicked off that portion of it yet in any great detail, but I would imagine there's going to be a lot said about connecting to those trails. Yeah. So stay tuned.
I was just going to add, if you dig into that Butterfield Road Corridor Plan, and it's all online, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is, yep.
You'll see that's actually something, that's a goal of the plan.
Yeah.
There's a whole chapter on it.
Yep.
Jim?
I'm just curious as far as what the challenge that we're talking about. Up to this point, Has there been much means of communication between the towns as far as what their plans are? Because a lot of times, for instance, high-rise buildings or density, because what one town puts up could certainly affect the surrounding towns. And I didn't know, is there much communication between two towns? Or is it just like it stopped at your border and we'll do what we want?
Stan, what have you seen so far?
I can take a little bit of that. So especially with this plan, we did hold monthly meetings with each of the community development directors to develop this plan, and there has been some more understanding since this plan has been taking place about what's going on in the neighboring communities and what's coming up on some of those neighboring communities as well.
Thanks.
There's a couple sections of, I recently got involved with, I'm staying and visiting a friend of mine that has a restaurant. And one of the biggest problems that you have with this corridor is the entrances and the exits. They're basically majorly confusing. I've witnessed a half dozen potential accidents coming off Butterfield into the high-end residential area or the hotels. It could be if you guys want to study something, you should study traffic control, because you've got a potential, cluster there that could become dangerous, especially if you start getting really busy.
Yeah, to say that there are challenging intersections along Butterfield is a dramatic understatement. And the report details the high crash areas
Yes,
at
it does.
intersection after intersection. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of jurisdiction over a lot of that. There's a lot of different entities, whether it's the county, the village, other municipalities that all kind of come together at various points. And redoing a lot of the access there would be an absolutely Herculean effort.
I'm sorry, what effort?
A Herculean effort. There's, especially when you think about the frontage road that comes off of Highland. There's a lot of construction that would need to take place that would involve a lot of folks that aren't in this room. So that's something we've occasionally commented on, but we'll do what we can, but I just want to set the proper expectation. When it comes to access along Butterfield, there's more than a couple of challenges.
There's sections west of the highway that's not even by Highland, that people are turning into oncoming traffic. And we're not talking about one or two, we're talking about quite a few of them.
Like I said, challenges all along the way, but thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The next item on our manager report tonight is our project initiation workshop. And so I'd like to introduce Nick Davis and Oscar Martinez with Halcyon Levine, who will be leading the village council through this exercise tonight. Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem.
Very good. Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to first kick off the project officially. We're going to do a little bit of a workshop after this. But before that, we just wanted to give a brief presentation update on where we're at. I'm not Josh Coombs. He was here today. He was sick, or he is sick right now. He's got strep. So I'm filling in for Josh. But Oscar's here. He's going to help relay all the information back to Josh. We'll bring him up to speed on all the comments that we go over, discussions that we go over today. But as I go through this, I just want to recap the last meeting or work that's been done since the last meeting. So I want to go through this workshop, and then we'll talk next steps, where we're going from here, what to be looking out at over the horizon. So just a recap, since the project preview, the engagement strategy and the project branding session is starting to come underway. So this is being led by All Together, so Marisa and her team. We were going through some work today from Grace, who's also on Marisa's team, going through the engagement plan, the approach, what the goals are, working through some of the project branding, different ways that we can brand this project, brand the multiple projects that are happening, and then use that across the entire project just to have a little bit of continuity, make sure people are aware of what we're working on. We've had weekly check-ins between HL and Village, House Levine and Village staff, but a lot of project coordination with our sub-consultants as well, getting everybody kind of spun up. January was a quick month, I'm sure maybe for some of you as well, so we're trying to get everybody on board, make sure that we're lining out these dates that are coming up ahead, and each one of them has a lot of their own existing conditions, reconnaissance, field work that they're going to need to start doing along with us. And then during these weekly check-ins, we go over any questions, concerns, just anything that we need to be making sure that we're front of mind or talking about as we go through the process. What I want to talk about today is, or what we want to go through is this workshop. So Oscar's going to hand out a form, and what I want you to do is do me a favor. I'm going to have you answer the first question. As part of this first question, don't jump ahead. I know we all have a tendency to want to jump ahead and work on the second question. I want you to just focus on this first one. So the first one we have is identify 5 issues or concerns confronting Downers Road, and shoot this through the lens of we're doing multiple projects, right? We're focusing on the streetscape for downtown in the Fairview focus area. We're working on a comprehensive plan. We're working on a bike and ped plan. There's a lot of different ways that we want to engage. We're working on a sustainability study. So it can be macro, it can be high level, whatever your key 5 issues are. There might be something very specific to a specific plan or an effort that we're on. You might end up having more than 5. Try to keep it to 5 if you can, just for this exercise. And what I want you to do is just write these down. Be brief if you can. We're going to collect these sheets, so we'll transcribe all of this information. And then we're going to go around the room, and everybody's getting an opportunity to share all of their issues. But we're going to go one at a time. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. Just the council. Yes, this will just be for the council. We're going to do a very similar. That's a great question. Sorry, you're going to participate by watching. You get to see what some of the responses are. We're going to do a very similar exercise with the public in multiple ways. So you're kind of cheating. You're previewing it, so you get to see what's coming. So you're going to be a little bit more ready than other people. So don't share with your friends. But no, this will be an exercise that we do with the business community, with residents. It'll be almost identical to questions, and we do that on purpose. We want to make sure that we're consistent with the way that we're collecting our information, and also it'll be easier to kind of compare apples to apples. So I'll give you another minute since I talked over a bunch of that. Second warning. Pen down. You get to be first. So everybody can keep writing. We'll do this for the sake of time. So do me a favor. What I want you to do is just give me one of your issues, and it can be any order. You're going to get an opportunity to share all of your issues for the most part. And we're going to go through this. Each person's going to go one at a time. Where I can, I'm going to consolidate. So I am going to collect this. We're going to write it as it is. We're going to scan it, so it's not like we're going to lose any of the information. But in an effort to save some board space, we're going to work together to kind of condense some of these concepts. You will find, and we're going to do our best, but we're going to have some that maybe as we make this list probably could have been combined. We'll do that as well when we summarize. But sometimes an issue seems really important and it has to be its own. And then we go through some of these other questions, you realize we probably should collapse them. So it's a good exercise as part of this planning process. So I'm going to have you go first since you put your pen down first.
All five of them?
Nope, just give me one each.
Just one, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Nice try.
Yeah.
That was good. That was
All
good.
right, all
We
right.
wrote the same one for all five.
That's right, emphasis. Yeah, so I'm going to break a different way, because I wrote empathy for opposing points of view. So not your, maybe not your typical response.
Yeah.
And definitely different than my other four.
Yeah.
But I think that's an issue that seems to come up over and over again here in town.
Okay, so empathy for differing points of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you would, I would maybe elaborate. That would be really helpful.
Well,
as
you
an
know, we've
issue.
seen things that have been happening at the library board meetings. We've had people at our council meetings in and around the video gaming issue. I spent a few years on the school board and had a few issues there during the pandemic. So just needing to everybody come together, and if we don't agree, at least agree to disagree.
Yeah.
So that we can move forward and come up with solutions that work for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and if you've read the previous comprehensive plan or any comprehensive plan, there's a lot of, and I don't love this word, but I don't know a better word for it. There's a lot of compromise because we can't all agree, and you've got to get this in the plan. There has to be a recommendation or a direction. Probably one of the hardest jobs. I mean, it's good that you wrote this first because it's probably the hardest job from our perspective is we have to thread all of these different input points for the next 18 months in these projects, and we're not all going to agree, and that's our job to make that a cohesive series of recommendations. So, yeah, I would say empathy for differing points of view.
Well, I'll just further add that, with all the work we're going to be doing on the comprehensive plan, solving that is kind of necessary for us to have a good plan.
Yeah, and I find that it's in discussion. We have to. There can be education components about why we're going the direction we're going. There needs to be some give and take. We feel very strongly about one issue, so we need to adjust in another. But that's really good. Are we just going to go in order? If you have one you want to share?
I feel like we have a lack of diversity of housing stock. We're a pretty built-out community, and one thing that we frequently hear is there's just a lack of kind of entry-level housing or missing middle, things like that, where people can kind of get a foot in the door in the community. It just seems that everything is increasing lately. So
yeah, lack of housing diversity is definitely an issue that probably one of the core responsibilities of a comprehensive plan, even more so recently. I mean, in the last 10 years, housing has become increasingly more and more of a discussion in these plans. But housing affordability, and you mentioned missing middle, affordability for different home types. What was the way you phrased it was really good. Like that first home buy is one that's a real challenge.
yeah,
for
the entry level
level
housing.
Yep. So that's good. It's definitely something we'll have to talk about in the plan in a couple different ways. Did you have
Preserving the balance between tradition and progress.
preserving the balance between
Tradition
tradition
and progress.
Yeah. Can we?
What do I mean by that?
Yes, I would
I'm
love
glad
it.
you asked. So we are a historic community, having been founded in 1832. We're very rich in history, very rich in culture, and have an authentic historic downtown. Also have a number of landmark properties that are growing in town. So the community is very proud of its history, very proud of its community and its roots. There's a lot there to respect and a lot there to celebrate. And yet, on the other hand, we also have to be progressive and dynamic and take into account that there's a changing world both within Downers Grove and around Downers Grove. And we can't wait for change to happen to us. Change will either run you over or you can lead it. So we have to continue to lead change, be ahead of change in our community, anticipate change in our community, respond to it appropriately and respectfully, at the same time respecting our traditions and our history and our past.
Yeah, no, that's great, and you're right. It's very important to. We always talk about that at the beginning of the project. It's actually one of our last questions too. Is there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of the recommendations that need to be drafted in the plan. We don't want to break anything that's cherished or important or that's worked really well, but you do need to think about the future and what your opportunities are and where you pick those decisions are a big part of what we'll need to do in the plan. So it's a good one. Do you have one?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit and circle back to number 2.
So
just a comment on it, because I also wrote down about housing diversity, but I do feel like there is a diversity to the housing stock in Downers Grove. I'm not entirely sure that it's necessarily diverse enough. I think it needs to be enhanced. But I think perhaps part of the problem is there hasn't been a ton of turnover of some of the more affordable housing.
Okay.
So it's just my 2 cents on that.
Maybe fair to say there's just not enough, right? In terms of you might have a diversity in the housing types that are here. It's just not meeting the demand or the need that you're seeing from.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. And that'll be a big part of the evaluating process in the existing conditions.
Yeah. And sticking with the change theme from Commissioner Tully, I think one of the challenges we face is the changing retail marketplace. And we're seeing some discussion about that with regard to Butterfield. We've seen a lot of different changes on Ogden Avenue. There's more and more people just ordering what they need on their phone. You pull up your Amazon app and type in whatever you're looking for. It arrives on your porch in 2 days, if that. And the impact on brick and mortar and the related impact on our sales tax was significant. We've seen some change in that with changes in state law with regard to internet sales tax, but it's still going to be a challenge in terms of vacancies and attraction and retention of businesses.
Yeah. Do you want to add to this one? I mean, I think those are different, but one that I would put up here is probably just the change in retail.
Yeah, changing retail marketplace, absolutely.
Change in retail marketplace. Ogden Avenue, 75th Street, I mean, and even some of the other corridors, pretty significantly hit. I mean, Ogden Avenue's been planned for 50 times over, up and down the corridor. There's a lot of different strategies, and I don't think any of them are fully ready for what's happening now and what's been happening and what you need to be doing in the future. Do you have one?
Sure, I guess mine's not quite as high level as those, but I think parking and the use of parking, particularly the changes in like these commuter lots and the downtown area, I think as Mike was saying, like, we have to look at other people's viewpoints, because like some people don't think we have enough. Some people think we have too much. So I guess just taking a look at the use of parking and how it's going to be used going forward.
Yeah, typically I would say that's getting a little more detailed, but we're doing a downtown focus area where we're looking at Fairview, so I think that is appropriate for this discussion. I manage a lot of our downtown plan projects, and I will tell you that's normally number one and number two issue is not enough parking, or we have too much parking. It is a real issue. It's a perception issue. It's a reality. How it's used, how it turns over, the efficiency of them. It's a real problem, and it continues to change because the way we use parking is changing a lot. So I do think the use of parking is something we'll need to examine. I don't know. I don't think we're taking questions from the public, correct? No. Okay. Sorry. But I can stay after the meeting. If you have a question, we can chat. Go ahead.
I had connectivity. I really feel like it speaks to a few things. First, transportation. Certainly, as we talk about all these different areas, Fairview focus, versus downtown, and connecting those, but also we think about the moats that are Ogden Avenue and the moats that are 63rd and 75th, and even connecting north and south. I feel like there has been, there's a lot of opportunity there to sort of bring the north and south together in a way. So certainly transportation is what comes to mind, first to mind, and pedestrian and bike, and how we manage or change that with the changing ways people are planning on using different types of transportation. So I thought about it primarily in that regard, how we connect these nodes, how we sort of provide for non-motorized pathing and use, throughout the village. It might be tied to empathy too, and trying to connect us as a community a bit more. I think that's, we've come through some interesting last couple of years, and so I'll tack that on to Commissioner Davenport's empathy as more of a connection.
Okay. Yeah, so connection, but that's both a physical, geographic connection of these nodes, might even be a mental disconnection that you're facing right now. And then I think it's important, because we're doing this comprehensive plan, That'll talk about the geographies, the nodes, the places people are trying to get to. But then we're doing this bike and ped plan that'll talk about motorized and non-motorized ways that people want to connect to these spaces and move to and through these spaces. So I think that's a really good. So lack of connectivity, and I would say both in geography and in sort of perception issues. And then I would put under here just motorized and non-motorized. Yep, a lot to address there for sure. Okay, we're gonna go back around again. It's a small group, so I don't think this will be an issue yet, but if we get to you and all of your issues are up on the board, let us know. It's okay to say pass, or mine's really close to number 3, so I want to just add this, but otherwise I'm good. So we'll go back around.
I'll throw out financial resources for LRP. So I'm just looking at all the wonderful things we'd like to do to create connectivity and more affordable housing and things of those nature. Great to put a plan together, but eventually, I think we're going to be faced with a bit of a dilemma how we actually get it done.
So financing the plan or financing implementation is a concern, right? Yeah. So concerns in being able to finance the plan's recommendation. Yeah, and I would say that's probably one of the core things that our team focuses on, especially when we get to those final chapters. We don't want to write plans that you can't implement, otherwise they're just policy and they're not very helpful. But knowing how you're going to finance them and what you're going to prioritize is a big part of what we'll talk about for implementation, to make sure that we're not setting you up for something that you couldn't actually accomplish or don't have the drive for.
Yeah, one in terms of public engagement is that we really no longer have any sort of local news source. We've lost all of our outlets, media outlets essentially. Even Daily Herald, which occasionally will cover us, technically doesn't even come down this south. And so we have just been really challenged in the public engagement realm of, we have limited staff and limited resources, and it's just been a real challenge to engage the community as we go along with these projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's so limited media, I guess, resources, and then i.e. that's gonna impact our way of communicating with the public and how to get the word out. That's something that working with All Together, I mean, they're gonna have a lot of strategies. I think what we're gonna need to know is specifically where have you seen success, who are connectors, who are the 100 people we gotta talk to that are gonna connect us to the next 10,000. That's a big talking point when we go through this engagement strategies. That's an important one.
Sure. I'm going to expand on what Commissioner Davenport said, because it's a chronic issue that has existed since 1965 when we first did this. Rising costs of services, capital investment, infrastructure maintenance, along with increased unfunded mandates.
Yeah, those are the ability to not just fund the projects that you want to do, but fund the projects that we all thought we had to do 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're still out there, and you got to maintain them. Those are all really important discussions.
And projects we may not have chosen to do, but told to do.
But we are doing them, yes.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, this is a pretty broad statement, financing concerns, but I think the gist of it is clear in that we have these plan recommendations, both those that are years old and they've been implemented, and we're carrying the cost and the burden of those, and it really puts a pressure point on any future plans and how you're actually going to fund it and maintain it in the future. That's one of the ones with the streetscape that's always a real sticking point, is people put a lot of money in implementing them, but if you don't maintain them and you don't take care of them, it actually looks worse than actually having the new streetscape. So it's just, those are the types of things that we'll make sure when we're working through these different projects we take into consideration.
Just kind of sticking with some of the things we're going to see in the plan. It's the revitalization of the Fairview Avenue area and the Belmont area. I think one of the great advantages that we have are our location and with regard to transportation. And I think we've seen Metra start to reduce service with regard to Fairview, and fewer people are parking at Belmont, and I think that creates challenges for us, but also opportunities.
Yeah, so is the concern that if we don't make these improvements, we're going to lose opportunities that could have been at those nodes or at those locations?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, so concerns at the Belmont, Fairview, can you name another one?
No,
Belmont and Fairview nodes. We don't want to miss an opportunity to capitalize on what they were meant to be. It's a good one.
Yeah, I just would expand on Commissioner Jose's and just mention the other underutilized commercial areas. You know, we are now focusing on the Fairview corridor. We focused on Ogden, but you know, there's some areas I know on 75th, 63rd, Butterfield that we're talking about now that are also underutilized that maybe we could activate.
Yeah, and you're right. We have a pretty targeted project with the focus areas for the downtown and for Fairview, but it is the responsibility of the comp plan to talk about these corridors, and there's a lot of different ways to approach corridor planning. Things have changed, and we've already talked a lot about this, but things have changed a lot on how you should be treating retail or these what were considered these big red retail centers all along the corridors. That's not really how it's playing out. So what are some other ways to, I'm going to go back to one of the first ones, where can we be more progressive? It's probably in those corridors. There's ways to rethink what they could be. So I think addressing some of the opportunities on 63rd, 75th, parts of Ogden Avenue are going to be a really important part of the plan. So just capitalizing or I suppose revisiting the traditional commercial corridors. Is that fair?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you have one?
Yeah, I just had the change in the way folks are working. So we have been fairly fortunate to have the 3 train stations, and then the way people are working, the hybrid or remote, has an impact. We have a fairly, I think, robust office space offering here in Downers Grove that certainly is feeling the impact, and sort of tied to some of the earlier discussion about Butterfield, sort of how are we going to start to think about these in relation to how we work and how we shop, retail and those types of things. I think that's a big, for me, a big concern, maybe an opportunity. Hopefully we can turn those into opportunities, but the change in the way people are working.
Yeah, I would say the change in the way people are working, where they're working, how they're working is a big It's interesting, right? In the last 10 years, it's all been focused on the change in retail, and then, boom, COVID happens, and it turns out it can impact a lot of different uses that we thought were pretty rock solid. Are you seeing? I don't want to dwell here. I'm just curious. Are you seeing? And we'll pull all this data. Increase in ridership is starting to pick up on the metro lines. There's a fare change. I think people are a little frustrated about that right now, but once that all settles, I think the impacts are fairly minimal. But yeah, just the way people are working. Are they going back downtown? Are you seeing a lot of businesses were leaving the suburbs and going to the downtown, and then that was probably one of the bigger hits with COVID, is they started shifting back to the suburbs. So I think, to your point, that's an opportunity to pick up on that. But are you seeing that, or is it mostly remote? Anecdotally, I suppose. But
yeah, I mean, I think there's been a change that has stuck around longer than I thought it would. More people spending less time in their offices. I just know, just based on my own experience as someone who rents an office and look around at some of the floors in my building and some of the other buildings, it's a change. Now, it's better than it was a year ago, but I think as a village, we sort of need to understand what our residents are sort of doing and how it's impacting, and how do we help them get more for when they are home, or provide for more when they do go into the city, or wherever it is they commute to. So again, it's just a question, I think, a concern. Certainly, I don't know that I have any real answers, but
I was just curious.
That's your job.
No, it's a lot of communities are talking about it, and it hits some communities harder than others. I mean, some I've seen virtually nobody come back to their main downtown, and others are seeing more of a return. And it's just, those are numbers that we can pull, or whatever's available. We'll use it to guide our recommendations.
I was just going to say, like, we talk about Fairview Focus, and we had a long discussion about home people working from home, what they could do. I think even that conversation might not have happened 5 years ago, or been open to it. 5 years ago. So it's impacting some of the, and even the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about.
And thinking about commuters going downtown, you still see it on the train. I mean, the trains are reasonably full Tuesday,
Yep.
Wednesday, Thursday. Monday and Friday, you could blow a cannon through it.
Yeah.
The impact is still there.
Do you have another one you want to add?
Stormwater management.
Stormwater management. And that's stuff that we'll dive, stormwater management, the main one. And that's something from a land use perspective. It starts to tie into some of the impervious service discussions that we're going to talk about. But I mean, do you want to maybe you want to elaborate more on?
No, we've accomplished a lot in past years, but a lot of what we've done is catching up from all the things that weren't done before, and looking forward. This is not a problem that's going to get better. It's going to be a constant struggle, I think, to keep up. So it needs to be an important piece of almost everything we think about going forward. There's obviously a financial burden that comes with that as well. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I just had one that honestly probably has covered many of these, and that's just that we're pretty much built out, right? We don't really have any undeveloped land, so.
Yeah. It's, now you're into infill redevelopment. I think looking at lots that you didn't look at before, parcel consolidation. So that those are the strategies are different than they would be in a different community. So yeah, you're a built-out community. I was just in Dixon, Illinois, and they were asking a similar question, but the other way. And I'm like, well, there's different ways that you grow, and your opportunities, if you choose to grow, your opportunities to grow are very different than a more rural community.
So one of the ways that you keep your community so desirable that nobody wants to leave out and open up that starter housing stock is by maintaining a reasonable cost of living in your community, which translates into your tax base, translates into your property tax levy, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the ways, big way, that you can offset that in the face of rising costs of services, capital, infrastructure, unfunded mandates, see how I'm tying all this together? Is through robust economic development. And we're going to continue to face stiff competition from neighboring communities, even the ones that we're just talking about cooperating with, because everybody wants to have the economic engines that drive non-resident property tax revenues to their town, so you can pay for a lot of these things and yet keep your property tax levy and other overall expenses down to make your community reasonably affordable to live in.
Yeah. I mean, economic development, and that's not always lost.
So, you have to have a community that is not only very friendly and livable to your residents, but also something that is important and capable of attracting and retaining businesses that drive those non-property tax levy revenue dollars that end up benefiting everybody.
Okay. So economic development, increasing the non-residential tax base, I think should be a target of any plan.
Right, and what can you do to make your community desirable to attract and retain businesses?
Right, attract and retain. So economic development is one I would put up there. And then I would even just say it that way. I mean, how do you attract and retain businesses?
So obviously we have an economic development corporation that is charged with doing that. Our staff's fantastic, but you can only do with what you have to work with. So it's up to the council to provide a community that has an infrastructure, et cetera, that's attractive to businesses that then drive revenue, that makes it continually attractive for residents, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, infrastructure, also the land. I mean, if there's different opportunities that people are looking for, and it doesn't look like you have it. Do you have it? You just need to think more creatively with the parcels that you have now. That was where I was saying, like the consolidation of parcels. You might have to think of things differently than you have in the past. So that's a big one. Okay. Do you have another one?
He just ticked off the last one on my list.
Oh, all right. That's good, though. That's a big one. Did you have another one?
I don't have another one, but I would say that's very important to me as well.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of goes. I mean, economic development comes right back to where we put like financing. I mean, there's all these great things that we want to do. If you don't have the tax base that supports it, not only can you not support what you're doing now, you can't move forward. So it's a big issue.
I don't think I had any new ones to add. I would just say the ones on my list. Certainly the retail environment. I think we're just talking about that, economic development. I think even more than stormwater, just environmental concerns as a whole.
Yeah.
It's stormwater now, we don't know what's coming down the path, so I would,
Instead of that being a separate, because I feel like that's going to split the votes, I would say stormwater management slash, just environmental concerns,
Yeah.
or environmental factors. Yeah, that's
Yep.
that's a good point. That's a big part of what Delta is going to help us with when we move to the sustainability components.
and then I also had housing inventory, which was brought up, and then the aging infrastructure, which I think was mentioned, so.
And then just to
It's technically
just
6.
confirm, when you say housing inventory, are we talking about the lack of housing diversity? Are we talking? Is there
Yeah.
anything beyond that that we maybe missed in this
I
discussion?
mean, for me, it's the diversity, it's the landlock, it's
Okay.
a number of things there, the inventory, so
Okay, good.
hopefully those are.
Do you have another one?
I had one that kind of touches on everything, and that was zoning. So many of the things that we're talking about are directly related to zoning. So you think about affordability of housing and economic development, and what we decide to allow and not allow directly impacts all of these outcomes. And so. And I think that it's one, I've enjoyed the planning so far, and I've enjoyed all the discussions I've had with my fellow commissioners here over the last 8 or 9 months. But eventually, it's going to come down to zoning and the wording of the zoning and whether or not we're going to agree on all that and what the community thinks of that as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a concern for me, at least, in how we make that work.
Yeah, so the other half of what I do is the zoning half, and that is, as important as this is, the other part is, what we're doing for the next 18 months is establishing policies and recommendations and making sure that we're all moving towards a shared vision. One of the next projects, and this is how you truly implement a comprehensive plan, is what strategic amendments do you make to your code, how do you update your code, what do you require? We're not there yet, and we won't be in this plan. We're going to talk about what we want to encourage, what you should do, what you could do. But you're right. I mean, to truly implement the vision of this plan, you're going to need to amend your zoning code. And that is where some of these discussions that are a little bit easier to have now in the comprehensive plan become increasingly more difficult at the zoning level. So we want to make sure that we have this shared vision so that that discussion at least has a bit more context than it might have. So I definitely agree that zoning and using zoning to implement a plan is an important consideration when we do what we do.
Just one last thing to close me out, I guess, is I had pedestrian safety / need for multi-purpose trails. That kind of goes along with the connectivity, I guess. But safety is a concern for me, so I'd like to see that word up there somewhere.
Okay. 15, I would just put zoning / implementing the plan. And then 16, I would say safety, and that would include things like, pedestrian crossings, trail connections.
Traffic,
yeah. Did you have another one?
Nope.
Anybody else?
Expansion of, it's sort of the opposite, it's the other side of the coin of number 8, which is changing expectations for dynamic community engagement. So it's proactive expectations of not necessarily relying upon media to report things that we do, but how do you proactively communicate to people in new ways, particularly in a changing world where the modes of communication and the expectations regarding communication are changing as we speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's part of why this happened, right? It's the way people want to consume that information. Okay,
So it's replacing that is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
lack of it, that's not an option anymore.
Right.
What do you do?
What do you do? So if we have limited media resources, how do we leverage the other ways people...
Yeah, how do you offset that?
So
Replace that?
Replace. What do we need to do? We need to replace that communication mechanism.
don't you think that it almost seems to me like it's fractured is the problem. I mean, people get their information from so many different places. See, when we had a
There's no
newspaper,
trustworthy source.
kind of put something together, and we were all kind of following that same thing, and yeah, there was trust in that resource, and now it's...
Yeah, sound off, I trust it.
Yeah, right, sound off. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
You said it much more clearly than what I was saying earlier, where that's why it becomes our job, working with the village, but also working with our sub-consultant altogether. We got to find those connectors, and that's what I mean by those connectors. You have to find the resources that are going to get this message out. Whatever their agendas are, we just need one of those agenda items to be, here's another way to participate with the community as part of this planning process. So, yeah, no, expectations are very high for community engagement, and ways that we get people to show up are increasingly more and more. So it is a real challenge, and that's part of why we have to go to where people are at too. We can't just hold a meeting at Village Hall and say, meet us here. We have to go to where they're at, and that's those pop-up engagements. And they're very successful, but they're a very different way to do community engagement. So the questions are different. Did you have one more? No. Nope. Another one? How about you?
Good.
All right. Do you have one more? I feel like you got one more.
I do. You keep asking, you'll keep coming. Well, I'll give you 5 more, you'll need another whiteboard.
Someone's not following directions.
That's supposed to look. I'm being proactive and dynamic. We pride ourselves on continuous innovation. In fact, I think it's in the plan already. That's not easy.
No.
You have to have staff, you have to have resources, you have to have engaged community, you have to have a council leadership with forethought and imagination. It kind of overlays everything up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to say that, it's another thing to do it. And this community's been really good at it for decades. But, like the space program, you land on the moon, that's great, but what's next?
Yeah. How's it worded in the previous plan, the current plan? Do we say it? I mean, are we that bold in saying continuous?
I don't know.
I'll find it.
Yeah, no. I just
probably in there.
Because you're right. I mean, that's a very bold statement, and it's a hard thing
we're a bold
to do,
community.
right? I mean,
There's a
that's
strategic
goal,
goal,
yeah.
long-range plan to continuous intervention.
continuous innovation. Okay, I like that. Continuous innovation. I would just write that. It's not an issue so much as a goal that we all strive to accomplish through many of the plans.
But not to speak for Martin, but I think he's also saying it's hard to do that.
Yeah,
It's
well-
not, it is a challenge to
It's a fun thing to say.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
all the time.
especially when you're trying to balance progress with history.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Okay, so the next one for number
Well
2,
said.
what I want you to do is, so we have these 16 issues that we've identified as this group, and when we do
Innovates in
this,
your life.
when we do this in a larger group, we'll probably have closer to maybe 30 or 40. But for tonight, with these 16 issues, I just want you to take a minute. I can read them real quick to the group, but I want you to write down in order your number 1, your number 2, and your number 3 issue. And you can just write the number. You don't have to write the whole phrase. And I just want you to take a second, put them in order. So if you think your number 1 issue is lack of housing diversity, put 2. So I'll read these out loud in case you can't read Oscar's handwriting. Number 1, empathy for differing points of view. Number 2 is lack of housing diversity. Number 3 is preserving a balance between tradition and progress. Number 4 is changing retail marketplace. And if we want to edit any of these, please feel free, but we're just trying to catch these as an essence. So number 4, changing retail marketplace. Number 5, the use of parking. Number 6, lack of connectivity, perception, / geography, talking about motorized and non-motorized. Number 7, financing concerns, so how we're actually going to fund implementation. Number 8, limited media resources. More specifically, how do we replace and update these modes? Or how do we be more proactive? How do we be more dynamic? And how do we get the word out? Number 9, concerns at the Belmont Fairview nodes. How do we connect people to them? How do we take advantage of some of the opportunities before those opportunities are gone? Number 10, revisiting traditional commercial nodes. Number 11, changing where people work and how people work. Number 12, stormwater management, but also environmental concerns, environmental factors. Number 13, we're a built-out community, so that comes with different ways to grow that we have to consider. Number 14, economic development, We need to attract and then retain businesses. We're going to build up that non-residential tax base. Number 15 is zoning and how we implement the plan's recommendations. And then number 16 is pedestrian safety. We talked about different kind of crosswalks, different kind of trails, that type of thing. So just write those down, 1 through whatever ones that you have, and then we're gonna go around real quick. All right. So who had if you had it for any one of these? So if it was your number 1, 2, or 3 pick, raise your hand. So everybody should only get 3 votes. So who had number 1? Empathy for differing points of view. You got blue? I got blue.
No surprise.
Is your hand up? No. All right, 1.
I thought his hand was up.
I'm from Chicago. There's a lot of voting.
We got more votes in the hallway, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Suitcases under here.
You know what they say? Lack of, number 2, who had lack of housing diversity? So 1, 2. Okay. Who had number 3, preserving a balance between
Tradition and progress.
Tradition and progress.
Shocker.
1, 2. That's good. That's good. Who had number 4, changing retail marketplace? Okay, 0. Obviously a big issue. It's something the plan is going to need to talk about. We do this because it helps us get a little bit more direction on priorities. Where do we need to focus? But this is still an issue we're gonna need to talk about. Who had number 5, the use of parking? Yeah, same thing. We're going to need to talk about this in the plan, but obviously there's some of these that are more important to the group. Who had number 6, lack of connectivity? 1, 2. Okay. Who had number 7, financing concerns? How do we implement? 1, 2.
So, and I'd like to highlight that for a second, if I could.
Yeah.
In my mind, you could have gone with that one. You could have gone with economic development.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
Same thing.
I know.
You put that together with 4, with 9, with 10.
Yeah.
Because they're all interrelated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You'll get 6 votes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where we're better at this once we see them all on the list, because when we say them, they feel like they're the most important. Then we see them on the list, and we see how they start to combine. Our team, and we'll do this when we have 50 comments, it becomes even more of a challenge. Is we try to find themes and we connect, because you're right. I mean, you might get 2 votes, no vote, no vote. You can collapse these all, and they had the most votes. So I completely agree, and that's a challenge. That's our job. We'll thread that stuff together. Who had number 8? The limited media resources. 0. It's a challenge. We know that. Who had number 9? Concerns about taking advantage of those opportunities at Belmont and at Fairview. At 0. Who had number 10? Revisit traditional commercial nodes. 1. Who had number 11? A change in where people work and how they work. 1. Who had number 12? Stormwater management, environmental factors, environmental concerns. 1. Who put 13? Built out community.
So I kind of combine that together with 15.
Oh, cheater.
I mean, I could get there. I see what you're saying.
Privilege of the chair.
Yeah, all right. But you had to vote for 1. Which one would you vote for?
All right, if you're going to put a gun to my head, give me 15.
15. Oh, all right. Well, let's wait. All right. So no on 13. 14, economic development, attracting and retaining businesses. Thought this would be a big one. There we go. 5. All right. Wondered where the holdout was. Number 15, zoning and implementation.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a 1. Did you raise your hand? I just saw your hand move.
See, I thought I'd get Mike over
I saw
there.
your hand move. Yeah. I am like,
Pocket be dangerous in an auction.
Right?
I just saw his hand one time, and I am like,
Now you're
there's
down.
any movement. Yeah. All right. And then number 16, pedestrian safety. Nope. All right.
Is that equal 18?
Yeah, we can do. Wait, what's that?
Is it equal 18?
Oh yeah, no. I don't normally call them out, but we will. We'll do the math.
It's 18.
18? Oh, very honest. That doesn't always happen. So we're a small group, though. That's good. All right. Well,
You guys shoved me back in the box. I was trying to get out of the box.
We were almost at 19. We were close. Definitely number 1 issue: economic development, attracting and retaining businesses. That's going to be a common theme, I think, in many of the discussions we have. Almost always when we talk to the business community, when we talk to residents about how we can decrease the taxes that they're paying, or at least keep it level, what can you do to improve that? The economic development is a huge factor. I mean, the rest of these are all at 2s. So we're pretty consistent on what we want to focus on. Financing concerns, lack of connectivity, preserving and balancing between the tradition and progress, mindset, lack of housing diversity. So So again, all of these are issues that the plan will address. Some of these are going to get more focused. Economic development is trending right now in terms of what we need to focus on, but all of these will be talked about. Okay, the next two, I want you to write down. Just tell us. Oh, we've been doing this.
You have to log in again?
It's okay. I got it. Should I guess? What do you think it is? Give it a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No.
Better not be.
I got the
No,
same
it's not.
combination.
It is
I
not.
got the same combination on my luggage.
It's
98765.
Okay.
It's password.
Love it.
PASS.
All the cybersecurity in the world.
Yeah.
I want to see some
Oh,
multi-factor
no, duo.
authentication, Stan.
2 O's.
There we go.
It was a bummer. So.
Notice how nobody put cybersecurity on the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, we'll catch this back up. Okay, so for the third question, I want you to identify 3 specific projects or actions that you'd like to see undertaken to positively impact the village. So, and this is where, by the way, I love this graphic. So we've been taught, we're at like the 50,000, 40,000 so far. This is where you can drill in, right? Get very detailed. One of your issues might be lack of connections. It might be at this intersection, I want to see a hawk signal, or I want to see stop signs installed. I mean, you can get that specific. That's what we're looking for. So you're in charge. Money's no object. It will be when we write the plan. But for the sake of this discussion, we're trying to drive in on where we want to have a specific project. So just think through a couple of projects that you might want to focus on, or an action. One of them might be, I really want to see that we amend the zoning code right away to reflect any land use policy changes that we talk about in the plan. So take a minute or two, and then we'll do this popcorn style. So if anybody's already written theirs down, they can. You want to raise your hand? You can go ahead.
Because I cheated, right?
You cheated.
I do want to say sort of the obvious thing, but for the benefit of the room and those listening, this council just went through a high priority action item where we did a lot of this real granular stuff, and we've already have a work plan that is very ambitious, and we're working on it. So I'm looking at it as I'm not trying to redo that, but simply pointing out some things that if I could wave a magic wand tomorrow, something that would be really nice to have. Understanding it may not be in a work plan for 5 years, but down the road. And I also cheated and gave you 4 instead of 3. Completely reimagining the 75th Commercial Corridor focus area, like tomorrow, would be one thing. Number 2 would be somehow to encourage the planting of slow-growth trees by residents, such as oaks, which we don't have enough of, and how to figure out how to do that to not just improve our tree canopy, but to improve it for generations to come. Securing the long-term viability of our Class A office space. I know that's not a problem unique to Downers Grove, but with the changing environment, Class A office space, which used to be a wonderful thing for us, is now potentially a challenge. And then I have to say it, update the sign ordinance.
Yeah. What specifically in the sign ordinance?
The entire sign ordinance.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I'm with you. So I haven't seen it, but those are rough. Those are great.
None of those are getting done this year, by the way.
No, all right. I'm
Right.
okay. All right. So those are fantastic.
Well, one of them might.
I did. I said I cheated.
Those were 4.
Those were 4. But I stated I was going to give you 4, and no one stopped me. So now you're stopped from
You
complaining.
did end on sign ordinance, which I think is like a crowd bleeder. Right?
Well, then
That is not going to
No,
be a crowd
absolutely not.
pleaser.
No, the needle splashes off the
That's
road.
the opposite of crowd pleaser.
We're not doing zoning. But yeah, no, definitely updating your sign code. I mean, probably won't be something that comes directly out of the comprehensive plan, but for many reasons, people need to be updating their sign codes. It's compliant with Reed v. Gilbert, right?
Yes.
Of course it
Yes.
is.
Just wanna make sure,
Yeah, we went to the 7th Circuit to make sure,
It's
right?
fully compliant.
Yeah.
It needs to reflect a changed environment.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Enough said. All right.
It's battle tested,
Yes.
mind you.
Battle tested. All right.
Uh-huh.
Who else? Popcorn style. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to have inclusive housing policies. So, for example, incentivizing inclusive housing by having increased density allowances or fast-tracking permits, things like that.
Has that been a discussion that's happened at a public level, like going that route? Because that's something that typically we talk about through the comprehensive plan. Is there's different ways to encourage, incentivize, ensure
It is
that
something that
happens?
I've certainly brought up.
There's been public discussion, but we
Yeah.
haven't gotten real grand.
We haven't gotten that far yet, yeah. I would also like to find a way to incentivize renewables in terms of, with economic development, not just, whether it be residents or whether it be, a large development. I would like to see us incentivize the option of renewable energy and other, green or sustainable options when we're thinking about these larger scale projects.
Okay.
And I would like to use our existing bike and ped plan and of course use whatever we learn in this upcoming version to make more connections to surrounding communities and existing trails.
That's good. All right, great. Anybody else? What are some specific actions or projects?
I'd like to finally get our new gateway signs up. We've been talking about this for a million years.
Make them digital, too.
We can't.
That's why we need updated sign orders.
No, I vote no. I vote no. And then a little bit, higher on the flight plan. I'd like a TIF district around Fairview.
Okay.
To really kind of kickstart the revitalization around that area.
Is there no TIF district in Fairview now?
No.
No. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a tool to be used. Okay. Any other ones?
I had 75th was on my list.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to come back to that.
It's a windmill we've tilted at I don't know how many times.
Okay.
Right, Mark?
Okay. Yeah. You said a lot of things that were interesting. It would be interesting to see. Like, I guess in terms of the discussions, when we talk about going in a completely different direction or reimagining, certainly something the comprehensive plan could give a bunch of different strategies or looks to. So that's good.
Yeah, I also wrote down 75th and 63rd, and I think, the only other thing that I would mention, which is already on our priority action plan, is the downtown and Fairview streetscape plan and enhancing the outdoor dining, because I think that also ties right into the economic development and attracts and retains businesses, as well as brings in visitors from outside communities.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, obviously, we're talking bike and ped plan, but I think I would like to see a bike and pedestrian paths that connect north-south and east to west. We've got a few challenges with those moats, but again, you made me king. The moats will be crossed. I think the other thing, and I will defer away from the 22 items we've already done through our long-range planning, because many of those are things that I would and hope we will achieve. I think because we've had some interesting conversations around community engagement, I think I'd like to see a more concerted effort towards that on a regular basis, which may even include a communications board that we would add to our boards and commissions, where we have a group of residents who are having input and adding value in a way. So to me, I think that would be something great to do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. One of the things we'll talk about in implementation is we're going to spend a lot of time creating infrastructure for this community engagement platform that we're going to use throughout the project for different phases, right? At the beginning, it's going to be about issues and problems. We're going to transition into like visioning and what would you like to see, and then we're going to go into review mode. And we're going to get feedback on what we're sharing. But you build this platform, and then at the end of the plan, you can choose to continue to use it, or you can kind of break it down. I think communities that have used it in different planning efforts or just different projects or keep it going have seen success. It's a great way to help implement the plan too, and keep people involved. So yeah, and it kind of goes back to this: we've lost some of our big resources. You may need to build what you need. So that's a really good one.
Yeah. So the Fairview focus area implementation. I'm especially excited about that because I see it as, I've said this before, an incubator for success, right? Lessons that we'll learn from there that we'll be able to apply elsewhere in town. I just think it's the perfect opportunity. Economic development, almost everything that's up there is in that. Dedicated multi-purpose trails connecting parks, places, neighboring trails, make me king for a day. I want that. And then revised zoning. So touching on creating more opportunities for for thoughtful development, for more housing options, right? And then also addressing economic development. I attended a session recently about affordable housing in the area, and one of the county board members was on the panel and made a comment about how there's such limited opportunity for multifamily, for instance, in developments in DuPage County unincorporated, because there's so few properties that have been developed. And it occurred to me that it's only limited because the zoning only allows it in certain places. There's probably other opportunities there that they're missing, and we're not going to miss that here. I think that's, and so zoning is the tool that we use, I think, to incentivize to create more possibilities, because it's an awful lot of thou shalt not, and in segregating these things out, and it's based on a lot of old ways of thinking, and it's time to look at it all. So I'm king for a day. That's something I'm spending some time on and making some changes to.
Yeah, those are good ones. They do tie together a lot of the ones that we talked about here. So, anybody else have any projects or actions that they want us to be considering as we move through this process? Okay. The last one, we'll do this one popcorn style too. This is one of my favorite questions. Is what are your primary strengths? What are your assets in Downers Grove? What are you most proud of? I mean, you talked about the history and what makes you so unique in this area and the things that you don't want to lose. We asked this question for a couple of reasons. We do go through a pretty transformative process sometimes, what the end product wants to be. And you don't want to break something that's working. You don't want to take away things that people are very proud of, or a special space, a historic feature, whatever it might be. And it can be something that is intangible that we just didn't know. So when you talk about Downers Grove, how do you tell that story? What are those things that are important? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I tell you this, I recently became an empty nester. You start having conversations about, where am I going to live? I could be anywhere. Where should I be? And this is where I want to be, and it's because of you and you and you and you and you and you. It's the people in Downers Grove. We have it's our biggest resource, right? The people of all walks of life. It's a great mix of people. So for me, that's number one. Another one would be schools. No surprise, former school board member. So, but I think we all agree our schools are awesome, and we talk so much about wanting the kids to come back. They had to afford a home here and be here and live here, and getting our kids educated is a big part of that, and in that cycle. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people know other people that like multiple generations here. I'm always so envious of that when I come across people that have grown up here and families, or their parents or grandparents or great grandparents. There's a reason why people stay, and then location. Wow, right? Mm-hmm. Look at where we are. We have great access to transportation. Mm-hmm. We have a great economy here. We're just so ideally positioned relative to the rest of the Chicago area that everything's not too far from here. It's a great place to be no matter where in the Chicago area you're working, really, and we have great resources. So the location is, I think, key as well.
Yeah. So those are both great.
Thanks.
Mike must have gotten new glasses because I think he read my notes. The resident piece I thought was right on the mark. I mean, when you look at the folks that live in town and what they have to offer, when you look at the resumes of people that apply for boards and commissions, and you try to decide even who to interview, let alone who to recommend to be appointed. And some days it's like, I might as well just toss them down the stairs and see which one flies farther, because everybody brings so much to the table. And I think that's why we're going to get such great feedback from these pop-up sessions, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have to make sure that we get those pop-up sessions out there. They're going to be vitally important. I mean, the first one I wrote down, Mike, was location, so you nailed that one, too. The only thing I'd add to it is, what's our primary strength? I think it's downtown. It's absolutely the beating heart of our community. And the vitality of that, I think it obviously comes from our residents, it comes from our businesses, and it just radiates out throughout the area. It's really the crown jewel of our village.
Yeah, I mean, to add to the conversation about the people, the other thing that I would add to that is it is a very welcoming community, whether you did grow up here or you didn't. Because I didn't. I grew up in Ohio, but I don't have family anywhere near here, and I still feel like I have found kind of my family in my neighbors and neighborhood and friends. So it is a very welcoming, kind community as well, right? So it's, we're not one of those suburbs that, you had to grow up there and you have to be kind of part of the niche and the clique. It's not one of those places. We have a nice balance between that. And so that is something that is really valuable here, because when we talk about balancing progress and tradition, I feel like just in the way that our residents interact with one another, do a great job of embodying that. So that is important for me. In addition to the vibrant downtown, one of the things that drew me here was that it was a lot of independent stores. So these are really people who live here and have invested here. We have so many independent business owners in our downtown who also live here and raised kids here. And so I really value the fact that we have put an emphasis on those small business owners and keeping that vibrant. Obviously location, and a diverse economy. And the other thing that I really do notice when I'm driving through different neighborhoods is that we really have made, and I know we get a lot of criticism about it, but we really have made efforts to preserve trees and green. When you drive through our neighborhoods, you really do notice a difference when you're driving through ours versus other communities and even in other states. I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, and even when my mom comes here to visit, she has even remarked on how, how green everything is and how lovely it's been kind of handled and preserved. So I think all of those things are things that we should be proud of. And not to mention, I'll also add, we do have an award-winning library, and our library really, we've talked about it a little bit, is really a home for a lot of folks too. I have a young daughter, so we spent a lot of time there. And they're a really valuable resource here, so, yeah.
Feeling like I don't have a lot of original thoughts on this one. Location for sure, lots of reasons, not least of which close to 2 airports. You can pretty much get anywhere in the world within a half hour from here. I definitely agree with the people and feeling welcomed as someone who came here 18, 19 years ago, and same thing, sort of developed my own friend family. But I think a big part of that for me has been the neighborhood school elementary system. How those, that I think is, when I talk to people who don't have that kind of system, it's amazing when I see the difference in their friend groups and how large and how connected they are to their communities. So I think that's a big one. I also had downtown, and I think a testament to that, amongst what has been already said, is our desire to replicate in many ways at Fairview. We're looking for the success we had in downtown. We're trying to capitalize on that at Fairview and maybe even beyond. So those are the things that I had, which are similar.
After you, Danny.
Yeah, I guess I don't have too much to add that's original either. I thought one of the primary strengths is I feel like it's a big town with a small town feel. Kind of like what Leslie said, how everybody kind of knows the individual the owners of establishments. You know the butcher, you know the shop owner, you know the restaurant owner, and I feel like there's something really cool about that. Kind of ties in with the great downtown that we have, and yeah, proximity to everything. I mean, there's not many towns that you can be on the highway in 2 minutes, whichever direction you go. You've got 3 train stations, and any amenity and shopping that you could possibly imagine, you know, just a 5-minute drive, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, location is clearly one of the top.
The Evangeline Lasses, I don't have to elaborate quite a bit on things that have already been said, but in no particular order, location for sure. A very strong brand identity. This is a community that people are very proud when they step up to the microphone and say, I've been a Downers Grove resident for 42 years. I mean, that's something that people take pride in, that they've been here that long, but also equally if it's 42 months. So that's an important point. Chris took my words right out of my mouth. They say that Chicago is a city of neighborhoods, and Downers Grove is a city of neighborhoods, and the way people affiliate with their school service areas is really remarkable. And yet, everybody comes together almost as one giant block party sometimes. Well, that's called Rotary Grove Fest. We'll get to that later.
That's right.
Mike touched upon it. People come back. I don't know how many kids went to our school system and then come back as teachers. That speaks volumes. And how many people grew up here, move away, live other places, end up coming back to Downers Grove. I mean, that speaks volumes as well. People stay, but they also come back, which is you can't put that in words. We have an authentic, historic, and now a destination downtown. A lot of communities are trying to manufacture downtowns out of whole cloth to get that feel. We've had one since forever. Tons of amenities. Danny's right about that. I have to throw a huge shout out to our village staff. We have top-notch services at reasonable value. Not to mention, you look police, fire, public works, library, go on and on and on. It's all top 5%, top 1% in the country, and yet. When you look at what our tax levy is, it's extremely good value. And I think people recognize that. That also doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of a lot of hard work. So thank you. And then last but not least is a little bit different angle on the people. We have a very vocal, engaged community that challenges their leadership. And that's great.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
it's great. It makes us all for a better community. We don't have people that don't pay attention. We don't have people that don't show up and speak their mind. We have more boards and commissions in Downers Grove than I think just about any other town I can think of. People participate in this town.
They do.
And they let you know what they think, and it makes it a better community.
They do, it does.
Yeah, I think you introduced me to the term of professional resident a few years ago. Yeah. Well said, Martin.
Fantastic. So hopefully you wrote all these down. I know Oscar's taking notes as fast as he can. So I am going to collect these when we're done here. This was great. I really appreciate you giving us your time tonight. I know these take a while, but they're extremely helpful. They do set a foundation for our team. This is a very similar set of questions we're going to ask when we go to the public. I think what you'll find interesting is there's going to be things that you hear from the public. There's going to be probably some issues that you might be surprised, or some that you've heard several times before, but we still need to address in the plan. So this process is very helpful. It's consistent. So I look forward to sharing the findings when we go through the public process with all these other groups, over the next few months. And so with that, I think I have, just next steps. So here's what we're working on over the next month. We're going to continue to coordinate with the sub-consultants and get them spun up. What was that?
Lovely.
What was that? Oh,
Valentine's Day.
Hey, who's bringing the candy?
The candy? What?
That's Wednesday. We won't be there.
Valentine's Day.
Don't worry. We won't be there. That's Wednesday.
Gotcha.
Hey, I'm just trying to help out. We got
Yeah.
to take care of the staff.
Don't worry. That's when they bring out the real snacks.
That's
right.
You got me.
Prime rib
this one's being
sliders.
done over the next month. So engagements and meetings, we got the branding concept meeting. That's going to be led by All Together. That's going to establish really the direction we want to take all these different studies, how we're going to thread together, how we're going to set the message of this project. So we're really excited to get that going. We're going to review the preliminary public engagement plan. We're working through that. HL, so House Levine and All Together, we'll be presenting that to staff. We'll take that through an edit process, make sure that it's looking the way it needs to look. We're going to start the staff kickoff meetings, the village tour, additional kickoff activities are happening. We're meeting with boards and commissions on the 21st and the 28th, so still coordinating on those. But this is where the subs are starting to get plugged in on their specific projects. You're going to start to hear and see people out in the field doing their field reconnaissance. Now that it's 45 degrees and we're all wearing t-shirts, it'll be easy to get out in the field and take photos.
Don't be.
Yeah, no, so this
Oh.
is...
Draw it again.
Yeah, it's only.
I've done that? Oh,
I think it's gonna, I think it's supposed to drop
Winter's
again
coming
next
back at
week,
some
so
point.
We got plenty of winter left. I think, so.
Yeah, but so, you know, with that, any questions about what we're doing, next steps? Otherwise, we'll be back to present some of our takeaways, some of our initial findings, give an update on these materials over the next couple of months. So, yeah, with that, again, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing, I'm sure this will happen, but it's unfortunate that Mayor Barnett couldn't be here tonight, because obviously, I think he would have a lot to say, and I hope his input will be taken in the same ways that ours says.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. We'll share the questions, we'll take it down.
Okay.
I feel like it's already happened, maybe there's been a text, I don't know.
No.
Wouldn't surprise me if he's watching.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
No, this is good. So again, really appreciate your time tonight. It's exciting. This meeting always feels like the official kickoff and go. So
Yep.
really,
No,
really appreciate it.
and thank you for yours and all the work that went into putting all of this together. You apologize for taking the time, but we're no stranger to long meetings, and we knew what we were putting on our plates and the size of what that reflected, and we're ready to put in the work. So we've got a great community to do it with. Dave, we are still under the manager's report. Anything from you?
I'll just take the opportunity for four shout-outs. First of all, to the residents, thank you so much for coming. I just want to emphasize that, as it says in the next steps, there are public engagement meetings where you get the opportunity to do this very same exercise. We really value your input. Please participate. I know this group will. Get the word out to your friends. We look forward to seeing you. My second shout out is to the council. This feels really good. It's usually me in this role here. And you know what, as an observer tonight, I'm so proud to be part of this council. This council makes great policy, makes it easy for the staff and the consultants. So thank you there. My third shout out goes to Stan, Jason, Emily, Flora, everybody on this community development and planning side. The work that you see, they are doing so much work, and the quality has not dropped a bit. In fact, you can see the quality gets even higher and higher. The way Stan puts together and delivers these, supported by his team, was another fantastic effort. That
well done.
Forward plan.
Great job.
The presentation was phenomenal.
Yep.
And the product of your work. So, and my fourth shout out, Nick and Oscar. Oh my gosh. We're so proud to have you as part of our team leading this effort. I think tonight was an indication of your excellent work, and we look forward to doing more. So, well done. Thank you so much. Next steps. Next week, we are continuing on our journey on the Fairview Focus implementation. We will be presenting an entire regulatory framework for council consideration. Looking forward to that. And then on the council next steps, it's this one, the February 20th. The council gets to review and comment on the public engagement plan.
Cool.
That's all I had, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That brings us to item 12. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, and good night.